Today we're looking at the Ford Focus Electric EV, the Ice Storm model, 5 doors, 142 PS, 84 miles per hour top speed and 0 to 62 in 11 seconds. The price of this particular model on the road, around about £28,000 after the government discount. So it's not the cheapest, it's certainly quite a little bit more expensive than the Renault Zoe, quite a bit more expensive really, but an interesting electric car all the same. For starters, it's one of the prettiest of the EVs we've tested. It's obviously based on the standard Ford Focus, which is of course one of the world's most popular cars. It's got the full complement of doors and seats that you'd expect to find in a traditional Ford Focus. Basically, they haven't changed anything at all. Well, we'll see a few changes actually in the back, but even down to things like having an automatic gear lever as opposed to anything else, and the spot where your ignition key would go. Fair amount of room for 5 passengers in the back. It feels like a much bigger kind of car actually than the other, even the Nissan Leaf, and with the same flexibility of the drop down. Now you'll notice, however, in the back here, one of the differences between this and the other built for EV cars is you have this large lump taking up quite a bit of your rear space here. So it's a bit unfortunate. These are the charging cables, the domestic one and the fast charger version, but you'll see that it does take away from your load carrying capacity. So there is a compromise on this, Ford just adapting an existing car build. If we take a quick look under the bonnet, well, as you can see, it's a very neat underbody experience. This is actually a little rubber casing or something. If you put your head underneath there, deep down there you'll see some gubbins, some tubes and stuff, but not a lot of traditional engine. Once again, the user serviceable parts are restricted to windscreen washer, brake fluid and coolant fluid. The rest of it is, and I'm not sure that you can fiddle with batteries on these electric cars. I suspect not. You'll probably break all sorts of computers and stuff. But as you can see, it's got lots of, because it's obviously not designed for an electric motor, it's got lots of room in there. One of the few distinguishing marks from the outside, apart from the electric badges on the side and the rear, of course, is this quite snazzy front grille to tell you that this is a electric version. Quite a discreet sort of markings for this car. You don't really know it's electric unless you get up close to it or you see it disappearing in front of you. You get clearly the full complement of driving aids for electric vehicles, a quite clearly marked mileage range graphic with, at the moment, 52 miles on the clock, and the speedometer. Quite interestingly, you get the standard park, reverse, neutral, drive and low, low being eco and drive being the normal. And on the right hand side you have some sort of gauge, which I've yet to find out what that actually means. I think it's some way of telling you how much power you're saving by how carefully you're driving, but I've not quite figured out how. I think the more you have, the better it is, but it's a little confusing. In the center console, quite a dinky little sat-nav screen. I mean, this is not a huge LCD display as you would find in the Leaf or the Zoe or the BMW, but I suppose it's serviceable, and from here you can do all sorts of interesting things, as you might imagine, and again underneath a traditional stereo system. On the center console you have a menu button which gives you various controls for things like syncing your phone, navigation, and basic setups. And then of course you have the navigation button for getting you to A to Z in your journey, and a standard map which tracks you through GPS. And the rest of this really just follows on from other center panels on EVs to give you information about the car, and also to let you control the multimedia. On the steering wheel you have the usual complement of cruise control, multimedia controls on the right, and this little set of controls here which give you, I don't know if you can see that, but you get different views depending on how you select your buttons, and you can check all sorts of stuff about your trip, your energy consumption. It'll give you an idea of how well or how badly you've been driving, and again information on the car and settings for all the bits and pieces. So it's quite comprehensive. They've clearly spent time on the software in here. Once you understand how it works, you can get through these menus fairly quickly, backwards and forwards. Some interesting points, things like this system check, which gives you an idea of exactly how the state of the car at any time. There's also a customizable or settable tire pressure warning, which is useful when you're trying to maximize your range, because of course low pressure in your tires means more drag resistance, means less mileage. So those kind of things are cool. Of all the EVs we've driven, this is probably the one that people will get to grips with most easily, because it's basically the same as an automatic car in almost every respect. Foot on the brake, take your handbrake off, put yourself into drive or low for eco mode, and foot on the accelerator, and that's it. The by now typical silent pull away, and you're away. The Ford Focus doesn't have the same kind of dual personality that we felt that Nissan Leaf has, this ability to kick it into turbo mode by turning off the eco button and using that as a sort of an overriding power button. The Focus goes as it goes. If you're in low or in drive, you get the same kind of performance, we think. The only difference between the eco mode is that there's a distinct regeneration effect when you take your foot off the accelerator, so it slows down a lot quicker and acts more in a braking way as it puts power back into the battery. And the regeneration mode really does seem to work on the Focus. I mean, not that it doesn't on the others, but it's quite significant, we think, on this model compared to other EVs we've tried. In general driving though, the Focus is very smooth. Feels very big actually compared to some of the other EVs. We did a quick hop to the airport the other day, and it quite easily cruised at 75 down to the airport, and with no real wind noise or road noise. Very, very refined in that respect. Well, here I am on my way to Gatwick Airport. 82 miles on the clock, 7 degrees temperature, just setting off really, a few miles into the journey. Let's see how it goes. Here we are about half an hour in, 62 miles on the battery, and about 20 miles to go to get to the airport. Seems to be doing very well so far. Well, here I am at Gatwick Airport, 44 miles on the battery, And if we see how far I've done 39.2 miles, so let's say 40 miles, taking me 1 hour 34 minutes. So it's not bad. The interesting point was I got about 10 miles back in regeneration in the last 10 miles of the journey to Gatwick, where I went down some pretty severe hills. Going back, of course, I'm going to get a penalty on that, and I'm going to have more people in the car, so it's going to be a fuller car, so that's going to be an interesting journey. And of course, I'm sitting here in the Gatwick charging bays, 4 3-kilowatt charging bays ready for electric cars. So I'm just going to see if I can get myself charged up while I wait for the flights to arrive. Well, it all went smoothly. Swipe the card, plug the plug in, and you'll see it charging by the pulsing light and the green lights on the charging point. So, success here at Gatwick. Let's see if we can get back. In fact, it's probably easy to forget that you're driving an electric car with the Focus, more so than any other car, because everything is so conventional, from the controls to even really to the dashboard, which, okay, it has a very nice range gauge and things like that, but it's still basically a speedometer in the center with your gear settings. As with most EVs, you don't really want to turn on your air conditioning if you can help it, especially if it's cold, because that takes away your range quite considerably. For instance, I'm now on 49 miles on the battery range. If I hit the aircon, it goes down to 30 miles, which is a considerable change. So the Ford Focus Electric EV, a really good looking, as you'd expect being based on a Ford Focus, good looking vehicle, really nice to drive, quiet, refined. Two things really. One is a car that's very familiar, so people who are familiar with Ford Focuses will enjoy driving this EV because it's a quieter, smoother version of just about every Focus on the market. However, it does lack a few refinements, such as a sophisticated navigation system, tracking to nearest charge stations and things like that. But overall, yeah, it's an interesting entrant into the electric vehicle market, and it's a credible first effort by Ford, no question. The Ford Focus Electric EV. As usual, if you've enjoyed this video, please like it and share it and subscribe to our channel so we can bring you more cool stuff like this. Thanks a lot.